Bramer is back with us, former US intelligence officer. Don, good afternoon to you. Great to have you with us. Technical hitches aside, you're welcome to the programme. Your response, if you would, sir, to that incredible, epic result for Donald Trump.
Well, good afternoon, Ian. It is a great day to be here this morning. I think the results, while not surprising to some, put a lot of Americans in shock. They listened to the media, they listened to the polls, and they listened to the wrong people. But certainly the quiet majority came out yesterday and voted very well.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, this was not a, a sort of indecisive moment. Has he just about done it? Is he going to edge it? Is there? I mean, this is unequivocal. There's not going to be a row over this result, that's for sure.
Well, what I think we see is, months ago, many Americans had already made up their mind, and they resonated with the message that Donald Trump and the Republican Party put out there. And unfortunately, the Democrat Party never had a message. They spent their entire campaign cycle talking about Donald Trump and how bad he was, and not talking about what their vision was for America and its future. And I think that was the big thing that differentiated the party here.
And I sense as well that, I mean, there's a lot of reasons. We could make the proverbial pie chart of all the different reasons why Trump is Trump and why he's managed to have this thumping and very convincing win. But, of course, amongst them is that the global factor, Trump on the world stage. Trump, a man with a huge ball of energy, very determined. He's talking about, being able to solve, I think were his words, but we'll wait and see on that. But certainly get involved in solving Ukraine, the Middle East. We never heard these words, really, from Kamala Harris. Never heard anything like that at all. No. He's a force to be reckoned with, and he said it out loud, and he said it out loud many times, Don.
Well, I think, we've seen what Trump can do as president, and we've also seen what Kamala can do as vice president. And there's a big contrast there. I think the world stage would most certainly welcome working with Donald Trump. They know what he's capable of. They know what he will do. But he also says what he's thinking, and I think that's a good thing.
Where do you think his first port of call, Don, is likely to be in terms of attempting to address international issues? Will it be Ukraine?
I think so. I think that, I was joking earlier this morning. I wonder if he's already made a call to either Putin or Zelensky to set up a three-way call and see, how do we end this war? He said that was going to be his first call, and I think he'll hold true to his word.
Yeah. He's got to work, of course, with a new team. Are you sensing some old faces might return?
Absolutely. There's a great list of people who have, said they'll come back. The Democrat campaign, they bragged about how many people from Trump's administration were against him and wouldn't come back, but that list is much larger of people who are ready to get back to work. They're ready to join the president and put this country back on the course that, as we saw last night, the majority of Americans are ready for us to do.
Yeah, and domestically, and I think this certainly happens in the UK. It's certainly happening in the UK, other countries as well. There is a sense that the establishment, shall we call it that, the status quo, the kind of Capitol Hill groupthink mentality that many politicians, left and right, but particularly on the left, have sung from this kind of collective hymn sheet that this is how we do things, this is how it has to look. We will embrace nonsense, we'll forget common sense, we will completely give a global light to the gender evangelism madness that is permeating every part of our institutions and world. That sense that the world has just been turned upside down, that we want common sense back. I think Trump, in a large part, Don, perhaps won because of his approach to those kind of issues too.
Ian, you're exactly right. I think that Trump was the voice for a lot of people in this country who felt like they had been forgotten, they had been silenced. He was a voice for a lot of, suburban females who didn't like the way our education system was going. They didn't like the way that progressive politics were being brought into the classroom, and those were the people who came out and voted. Many of them, for months wouldn't say who they voted for because they would be criminalized. A lot of people couldn't even put up signs in their yard because they'd be vandalized.
Yeah.
But the people who were forgotten are the ones who stood in line for hours and hours yesterday and made sure their voice was counted.
January 20th, there's an interesting gap between winning and serving, of course. It does mean that Kamala Harris has, I don't know, whether you call it an indignity, whether you just call it a slightly uncomfortable 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks, because she remains vice president. Joe Biden, of course, is still the president. It's worth reminding us of that as well. And I think part of her brief as vice president is that, as far as the Senate goes, she's the person that has to announce this victory.
That, you know, that's going to be a really tough pill to swallow on January 6th, when she has to ratify the votes and you know, basically concede a second time. And you know, that's going to be a hard seat to sit in, probably an uncomfortable seat to sit on when she has to sit next to him on January 20th as well. I don't think there'll be any harm in helping them get packed that day, but the House will be empty by the time they get there.
Will it be a peaceful transition?
I hope so. You know, I think we learned a valuable lesson last time. I think the city is more prepared to look for signals, to look for signs of what could happen. I hope that, you know, in today's politics, that, you know, the Democrats practice what they preach and they don't replicate what we saw 4 years ago.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it's going to be, if nothing else, I keep saying this, it's not going to be dull and boring. I think we can both and all agree on that. Listen, Don, great to have you on. Let's speak again soon. Don Bramer, former US intelligence officer with